This is a story of one of the native peoples of Canada, the Ojibway. 200 years ago, the Ojibway lived in the forests of the upper Great Lakes. Then, as white settlements grew up to the east of them, the Ojibway moved westward, spreading out onto the prairies, including the southern part of Manitoba. In 1870, when Manitoba became part of the Dominion of Canada, the Ojibway were one of the most prominent tribes in the province. Even today, their descendants make up a large portion of the native population. Since the arrival of the white man, the Indian way of life has, of course, undergone drastic changes, and native communities have struggled to maintain their cultural identities. Our story will show how, among the Ojibway, certain traditions vital to the sense of identity are still being honored. In the early days, when their way of life was based on the buffalo hunt, the Ojibway shared with other Plains Indians not only similar customs and values, but a similar view of the universe and of man's place within it. The Indian world was the world of nature. Nature provided not only for the physical needs of the Indian, but also for his spiritual needs, offering a constant testimony, as he saw it, to the power and pattern of creation. To the Indian, everything in nature was permeated with spirit, and it was by living in harmony with this spirit that he felt his life had purpose and meaning. By making ceremonial offerings to Mother Earth, he expressed both his sense of dependency and his respect. Traditionally, the education of an Indian was a silent process of watching and listening, which began when the baby, swaddled in a cradle board, was propped up to observe his surroundings. There were lessons in everything that moved: the soaring birds, the wind that bent the willows and made waves on the river, the warmth of the fire, the calls of the animals, the circling of the sun and moon. As the child grew, he watched the men of his family prepare for the buffalo hunt, and sometimes for war. He saw the busy women of the tribe prepare food and transform the hunter's catch into warm clothing and shelter for the families. The child's understanding of life was rounded out by the teachings of the elders, especially Mishomis, the grandfather, and Nokomis, the grandmother. Their stories and poem songs spoke of Mother Earth as a life-giver, the teacher and provider, and of the great spirit Kichi-Manitou, who created all things, including the Anishinaabe, the first people. These songs spoke also of the lesser spirits, who could be either helpful or harmful, and who might appear in any number of forms, as animals, plants, birds, even as stones or clouds. It was said that all of creation sprang out of the original vision of Kichi-Manitou, the great benevolent spirit, and that when all things came into being, the vision of the Creator was fulfilled. At the time of his creation, man was given, as part of his nature, the capacity to commune with the Great Spirit. When the Creator spoke to man, he did so through the language of visions and dreams. For the Indian, this was the way of knowledge. It was among the Ojibway and other tribes of the plains and prairie groups that the quest for such a vision was pursued most intensely. Through these visions, the Indian sought spiritual help in determining his identity and his role within the community. He also hoped to gain a personal spirit guardian who would give him the strength and courage to face whatever difficulties his life might bring him. Although it is no longer the custom today, in former times, when a young boy reached puberty, he would be initiated into adult life through his first vision quest. After being given advice and encouragement from his parents, he would be taken to a secluded place where he would fast and wait for the spirit to come to him. The retreat lasted 4 days. In that time, the boy in his solitude would experience both physical privation and fear of the unknown. He would ponder images awakened by his memories of sacred legends heard from his grandparents, of ritual dancers in their costumes, of the heartbeat of the sacred water drum at ceremonies. He would think about his family and many other aspects of his life. He would pray, and he would wait. The elders would have warned the boy that he might be assailed by evil spirits, and that he must be strong in meeting them, for if he did, this courage would be with him always. If a vision came to him, no matter what form it took, the boy would go to the medicine man, who would then explain the significance it would have for the boy's future life. From that time on, he would carry with him some token symbolic of the spirit guardian who had spoken to him, a token which was a reminder of his and his people's ultimate link with the Creator. However, the old life of hunting the buffalo on the plains has ended, and so has the custom of initiating the young into adult life through a vision. In the past, the Indians had taught the first explorers and fur traders how to survive the harsh alien climate of the New World. But with the arrival of large numbers of settlers from the east, there was no part left for them to play in the new society. No longer able to follow their traditional lifestyle, the tribes were persuaded to sign treaties, which settled them on reserve lands. At the same time, it was decided that the younger generation would be given an education which would enable them to make a living in the new society. Many children were removed from their family homes for long periods of time and taken into residential schools, where the curriculum was designed to help them become assimilated to the modern world. It was believed that only by renouncing their Indian heritage and beliefs could this leap into a different culture be accomplished. And for this reason, it was the policy of these schools to forbid children the use of their native tongue. At the same time, teachers discouraged them from following any native customs or taking part in traditional religious ceremonies. Over the course of several generations, the radical changes forced on the native community by contact with white society had a demoralizing effect. With the loss of their traditional lifestyle, their rituals and ceremonies lost not only their importance, but their meaning. For many young people, along with their knowledge of the old ways, any pride they might have had in their people's past disappeared. Today, Indians tell stories about their lives that reflect the plight of native society as a whole. Many speak of the loneliness they experienced as children, separated for long periods from their families. But worse than their loneliness was the sense of shame they felt at belonging to a group seemingly regarded by the rest of society as backward and barbarian. Some tell of times when they denied their identity as Indians, and when they despaired of ever finding meaning in their lives. Of those who left the reserve to seek opportunities in the city, many found only poverty and the escape offered by alcohol.
It is I in the cities, in the bars, in the dustless reaches of cold eyes who vanishes, who leans underbalanced into nothing. It is I without learning, I without song, who dies and cries the death time, who blows from place to place hanging on to dandelion dust, dying over and over.
There are those, of course, who have adapted to modern society, but some find that assimilation has a hollow ring. As one young Canadian Indian wrote, "Even if I as an individual Indian might be able to hold on to my identity, I am undermined by the collective fate of my people. For every North American Indian that begins to disappear, I also begin to disappear, because I cannot be an Indian if that identity is taken away from all the rest of the people, my people." For a small but growing number of the Ojibway of Manitoba, the search for their personal identity has involved a search for their native heritage. In order to find out what it means to be an Indian, they have turned to the elders of the Ojibway community. These men and women have kept the time-honored traditions alive in their memories, waiting for a time when the younger generation will be ready once more to appreciate the legacy of their people. For some, it is the vision quest that holds the most interest. In the old tradition, it was not necessary for women to seek visions, for by their very nature, women were able to give birth to life and to sustain it. In this way, they shared in the act of the Creator and in the nurturing powers of Mother Earth. And so it could be said that they already possessed some of the sacred qualities which men had to acquire through ceremony and ritual. But today, with the help of medicine people, both men and women are taking part in the revival of the vision quest. Through their dreams, some find inspiration to create. Paintings, stories, philosophies, all have come from visions. Whether inspired by visions or the pattern seen in nature, Indian women for centuries have translated such designs into decorative themes for their handiwork. Renewed appreciation of the past also takes the form of a new interest in the old ceremonies. A cornerstone of native spirituality is the pipe ceremony. With its bowl of rock, its stem of wood, decorated with the feathers of an eagle and tipped with fur, the pipe incorporates elements from different parts of nature. At the beginning of the ceremony, the pipe is filled with sacred tobacco. When it is lit, the pipe is offered skyward to Kichi-Manitou, downward to Mother Earth, and then to the 4 cardinal directions. In this way, the conductor of the ceremony pays respect to the spirit who pervades the universe. It may be said that he opens a channel of communication between the spirit and mankind. Among the participants in the ceremony, a sense of fellowship is established, and this harmony is often marked symbolically by having the pipe passed around in a circle. Another of the traditional plain ceremonies is the annual sun dance, with its central figure of the thunderbird. In its modern form, the sun dance is playing an increasingly important role in the revival of Ojibway spirituality. Although undertaken for the sake of the well-being of the whole community, the strenuous course of fasting and dancing may lead the dancers to experience personal visions as well. The sacred nature of the sun dance prohibits making a photographic account of this striking ritual. But when the dancers move and their special bone whistles shriek, when the drum beats rhythmically, and the whole lodge shimmers with the movement of spring-green poplar leaves, the effect is of a vibrating center of spiritual power. Traditionally, before any ceremony, the Ojibway would prepare himself for the encounter with the spirit world. His aim was to become purified both physically and mentally in order to empty his mind and open his heart. Among the purification practices current today are fasting, bathing in the incense of sweetgrass, and taking part in the mysterious ceremony known as the sweat lodge. The sweat lodge ceremony is said to have begun a very long time ago when the Anishinaabe, the original people, all became very sick. One of them, a little boy, set out on a quest to discover the secret of health for them. He climbed a mountain, and in a vision he was transported to the dark side of the moon. Here he encountered 7 spirit grandfathers who taught him how his people might be restored to health. Ever since, the sweat lodge has been constructed to commemorate the little boy's experience and to embody the teachings he received from the spirit wise men. The sweat ceremony itself symbolizes the death and rebirth of each participant. Wrapped simply in a sheet of cloth, each person taking part crawls into the womb-like lodge after offering up a prayer and casting a gift of tobacco onto the sacred fire. 7 fire-heated rocks, symbolizing the 7 spirit grandfathers, are placed in the central pit. The lodge is covered with canvas. In the darkness, the sacred water drum is sounded to call the spirit.
This small lodge is now the womb of our Mother Earth. This blackness in which we sit, the ignorance of our impure minds. These burning stones are the coming of new life.
I keep those words near my heart. Confessing, I recall my evil deeds. For each sin, I sprinkle water on fire-hot stones. The hissed steam is sign that the place from which the earth's seeds grow is still alive. He sweats, I sweat. I remember old man heals the sick, brings good fortunes to undeserving. Sacred steam rises. I feel my pores give out their dross. After I chant my prayers to the Great Spirit, I raise the door to the east. Through this door dawns wisdom. Cleansed, I dive into icy waters. Pure, I wash away all of yesterday.
My son, walk in this new life. It is given to you. Think right, feel right, be happy.
I thank you, old man, the sweat lodge.
The revival of interest in the ceremonies of the sweat lodge, the sundance, and the pipe indicates a renewed desire among some Ojibway to live in a way which accords with the traditional beliefs of their people. This is not to say that they are turning their backs on modern society, but rather that they are making an attempt to bring the old and new together in a fruitful collaboration. Native spirituality, they are discovering, is based on principles which are as sound now as they were in the times of teepees and buffalo hunting, and just as meaningful when they are applied to modern life. Today, most of us would feel it is perhaps even more important to respect Mother Earth and appreciate her gifts than it was 100 years ago, when her resources weren't being strained by overpopulation and technological change. At the same time, the growing recognition of traditional Native beliefs as expressions of an authentic spiritual outlook contributes to a rising self-awareness within the Native community. Problems still remain, but signs of this renewed self-respect may be seen in such things as the movement to restore children's schooling to the reserves. In these schools, the teachers are expected to be knowledgeable about the culture of the community. Along with the usual academic subjects, children are taught to understand their own traditions, and sometimes they take part in pipe ceremonies and powwows at the school. Lessons are given in their native language, for today it is often the case that only English is spoken in the home. In reserve schools, teachers report a happier spirit among the children, and with that, the possibility that more of them will complete their education. At the universities and community colleges, Native students are found in greater numbers than before, and they are becoming aware of a wider range of opportunities which are open to them. Already a number are showing the way by becoming proficient in social service areas or in new technological fields, nor are Native women shying away from opportunities in unorthodox trades. Rather than abandoning the old Native traditions, many of this new generation are aware of the distinctive contribution which the Native way of looking at the world can make. When they return to the reserves to take part in powwows, it is not simply in order to attempt to return to the past. Instead, they come to show their pride in their Indian heritage and to celebrate with their people the tradition which binds them together.